Will the Committee on Budget please come to order? I'd like to welcome to the chamber with us today, we have Council Chair Waters as well as Committee Vice Chair Nishimoto and committee members Kiaina and Talba. Thank you for being here with us today. Although remote oral testimony is being permitted, this is a regular in-person meeting and not a remote meeting by interactive conference technology under HRS Section 92-3.7. Therefore, the meeting will continue notwithstanding loss of audiovisual communication with remote testifiers or loss of the public broadcast of the meeting. Members of the public will be allowed to provide oral testimony on all items on the agenda in two ways: in person in the council chamber and remotely via video conference or phone. Remote and in-person oral testimony will be allowed when each agenda item is taken up. Before testifying, each person shall state their name. Each speaker may not have anyone else read their statement and is limited to a 1-minute presentation on each item. As both English and Hawaiian are official languages of the state of Hawaii, pursuant to Article 15, Section 4 of the Hawaii State Constitution and Section 1-13 of the Hawaii Revised Statutes, members of the public may testify in either language. For oral testimonies offered in Olelo, Hawaii, additional time as may be necessary will be allowed for the testifier to provide an English translation of their testimony. All persons who have registered to testify in person will be called upon first. When your name is called, please come up to the testifier podium and state your name. Persons who have not registered will be given an opportunity to testify following the registered testifiers. After in-person testimony has concluded, I will proceed to remote testimony via video conference or phone. When I call your name, please monitor your screen and follow the prompt to unmute. For those who are joining us by telephone only, please press *9 if you wish to testify, and I will identify you by the last 3 digits of your phone number. When your number is called, please listen for the prompt to unmute and press *6. Some friendly reminders and tips: video conference from a quiet location if possible. If you are also watching the proceedings on Olelo, please mute your television at the time you are called to testify. When the timer on screen reaches 0, please conclude your remarks promptly. Written testimonies, including the testifier's address, email address, and phone number, will be available to the public as described on the posted agenda. As a courtesy, please turn off or silence all cell phones for the duration of this meeting. Agenda item number 1. For action, Resolution 25-199, accepting a gift of certain real property and personal property valued at $1,630,032.63 to the city from Central Pacific Bank for use by the Department of Community Services in connection with the operation of a new government building located at 222 North School Street. And with us this morning, we have Deputy Director of the Department of Community Service, Mr. Edward Los Banos. Good morning, Deputy Director.
Hello and good morning. Edward Los Banos, Deputy Director, Department of Community Services. So the city is on track to close on an office building this fall that will serve as the future home for the Department of Community Services and provide a community service facility or center for folks seeking city services. What the donation includes is furniture and other improvements that will remain on site and facilitate expedient and cost-effective transition for DCS. The rooftop solar array and backup power appliance will also enhance reliability and resiliency of our operations. Also included in the donation agreement is a landlocked parcel along the stream between the office building and Queen Liliuokalani Botanical Gardens. The land is being provided at appraised value, while the furniture and equipment are valued at their depreciated net book value. But there's a lot of good networking, cubicles, chairs, all the furniture is there for us to move in quickly. I do want to acknowledge members of Central Pacific Bank leadership in the gallery for their generosity in helping us with this transition, including city alumni Tim Sakahara. Open for any questions.
Thank you, Deputy Director Los Banos. Members, do we have any questions for DCS, Deputy Director? Nope. Thank you very much. We'll now proceed with in-person oral testimony in the council chamber. Clerks, do we have any registered or non-registered in-person testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you. Proceeding now with remote testimony. Clerks, do we have any registered or non-registered testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you. Members, we are in discussion. Chair Waters.
Just want to thank Central Pacific Bank. Appreciate you guys coming down here today as well. Really, really generous donation. So thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any further discussion? I want to echo Council Chair Waters' mahalo to you as well. Thank you very much for this generous donation. Seeing no further discussion, the Chair recommends that Resolution 25-199 be reported out for adoption. Any further discussion? Any objections or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Moving on to agenda item number 2. Resolution 25-193, authorizing the Director of Budget and Fiscal Services to issue and sell not to exceed $230 million principal amount of wastewater system revenue bonds, Senior Series 2025, and related matters. With us this morning, we have our Director of Department of Budget and Fiscal Services, Director Andrew Kawano. Good morning, Director Kawano.
Good morning, Budget Chair Okimoto, Honorable Council Members, Andy Kawano, Director of Budget and Fiscal Services. With regard to Resolution 25-193, we are asking the members for authorization to issue up to $230 million of senior wastewater bonds at fixed interest rates. The amount of $230 million is also in accordance with the sewer rate study that was done last year, and it references into the executive summary, page 11. So it's just straightforward borrowing, and we ask for your approval for the authorization. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Kawano. Members, do we have any questions for Director Kawano? I will have a Committee Vice Chair Nishimoto, followed by Council Chair Waters.
Thank you. Good morning, Director Kawano.
Good morning.
You know, in our FY26 budget, we authorized $325 million for the bonds. Why are you only asking for 230?
So our practice has always been for both revenue bonds and general obligation bonds to only borrow what we believe we're going to need for projects for the disbursement. We don't borrow what we encumber or what is approved by appropriation. So we manage our debt service that way, such that we enter into debt agreements as we need the money.
So you might come back later for more.
Oh, we will.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Council Chair Waters.
Thank you so much. What is the interest rate that we'll be paying on these bonds?
It's difficult to tell right now because the markets are so volatile, but if we trend revenue bonds currently over the last few months, probably looking at about, in the high 3% to 4%, that kind of range.
I'm
Currently.
just looking at page 4, paragraph E. It says, however, that the true interest costs as determined by the authorized officer of the city and county, which determination shall be conclusive on the Series 2025 bonds shall not exceed 8% per annum in the case of a tax-exempt bond, or 10% per annum in the case of taxable bonds. Why is that in there if it's only 3%?
I think it's just boilerplate.
So we can change
not
that
sure.
to like
It
3%?
was set by council at some point in time in the past. Yeah.
So how long is this bond gonna, what's the payback timeline? Is that a 30-year bond?
Typically for sewer, it's 30 years. We are required by the Constitution of the state of Hawaii to issue bonds with level financing, so that while the bonds are of 30-year life, we retire the bonds from year 2.
Over the life of the 30 years, how much money are we going to be paying in interest based on the 3% as you mentioned?
We'll be paying, because we are amortizing the bond, paying it on a zero basis every year. We don't pay interest for the full 30 years. So we end up paying, I'd say, about 80% of the principal amount, such that when you add the principal to the interest, the total debt service is approaching 2 times the principal amount.
I mean, I've been making this argument all year that we should be using cash, if at all possible, rather than issuing bonds to save money on interest. So you're kind of making my point that you're going to be paying almost double what we're borrowing over the life of the...
We do use cash. If you look at the sewer study, we use cash financing and bond financing for improvements. So we are using cash every year as well.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Council Chair Waters. Members, any further questions? I had a follow-up question, if that's okay, Director Kawano. And thank you for the questions by Council Chair. Mine coincides with his. But will the exhibits be updated to reflect correct years and dates as the process goes on?
Yes. Yes, as we get through the ordering phase for the bond sales, we'll be able to fill in the details.
Okay. Thank you. Members, any further questions for Director Kawano? Thank you, Director Kawano. We'll now proceed with in-person oral testimony in the council chamber. Clerks, do we have any in-person testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you. Proceeding on with remote testimony, clerks, do we have any registered or non-registered testifiers for this item remotely?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you. Seeing no further testifiers, members, we are in discussion. Seeing no further discussion, the chair recommends that Resolution 25-193 be reported out for adoption. Any further discussion? Any objections or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Moving on to agenda item number 3, Resolution 25-198, authorizing the issuance and delivery of multifamily housing revenue notes in a principal amount not to exceed $107,710,000 for the purpose of making loans to provide financing to KPLR Phase 1 LP, a Hawaii limited partnership for a multifamily rental housing development, determining and prescribing certain other matters relating thereto, and approving and authorizing related actions and execution and delivery of related documents and agreements. And with us this morning, we have with us from the Department of Housing and Land Management, Director-Designate Kevin Auger, as well as, I believe, Kathleen Orlandi on Zoom from the Bond Council. We'd like to welcome Director-Designate.
Aloha and good morning, Budget Chair Okamoto. Kevin Auger, Director-Designate at the Department of Housing and Land Management. Good morning, honorable council members. Resolution 25-198 will support a state-sponsored project for the redevelopment of KPT low-rises and homes. It's located in Kalihi. This is a project that's sponsored by the Hawaii Public Housing Authority and their co-developer, High Ridge Costa. The project will support the development of 304 units of affordable housing. All of those units will be and serve populations of 60 AMI and below. What's unique about this project is that nearly half the units are family units of 2 bedrooms or more, with 70 of those units being 3, 4, and 5 bedroom units. The total capitalization of the project is approximately $212 million. That includes $117 million of low-income housing tax credits administered by the Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corporation, $37.8 million in senior debt that's provided by the Bank of Hawaii, $45.5 million in rental housing revolving fund that's supplied by the Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corporation, and $8 million in City Affordable Housing Fund, which equates to approximately $26,000 per unit. Those units will have a declaration recorded around them, providing that they remain affordable for at least 65 years, and HPHA will provide a ground lease for the development that extends 70 years, providing and supporting affordability for a very long period of time. We have the principal from the development partner, Momo Hana from High Ridge Costa, who's available to answer any questions that you might have. And we have Kathleen Orlandi, who's the city's bond counsel, on Zoom, who's also available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, do we have any questions for Director-Designate Ajay or High Ridge Costa or Kathleen Orlandi on Zoom? Chair Waters?
Thank you. Good morning. Hey, I introduced this on your behalf a few days ago, but I was concerned. Did you make an appointment to see me, the chair, or anybody else on this committee prior to introduction of this resol?
I don't believe so, no, Chair.
Well, may I suggest that when we're dealing with something of this importance that you do that?
Certainly, going forward, I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Waters. Any further questions, members? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Mahalo.
Members will now proceed with in-person oral testimony in the council chamber. Clerks, do we have any in-person testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you. Proceeding now with remote testimony. Clerks, do we have any registered or non-registered remote testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you very much. Members, we are in discussion. Seeing no further discussion, the chair recommends that Resolution 25-198 be reported out for adoption. Any discussion, any objections or reservations? Seeing none, so ordered. Moving on to agenda item number 4, Resolution 25-186, establishing city policies and priorities for the use of the Grants in Aid Fund. And with us again this morning, we have Deputy Director from the Department of Community Services, Mr. Edward Los Banos.
Aloha, Edward Los Banos, Deputy Director, Department of Community Services. As we've been in the process of negotiating and closing grants from this last cycle, we've been getting mixed feedback from our service providers, both for and against the seating reduction. Certainly, the larger service providers are largely in opposition of a grant seating reduction. These are also the folks that do work in the federal grant environment, so for them, it's just going to be more money they have to look to recapture. And broadly speaking, again, it's going to be the smaller nonprofits who are for the lower grant seating because it gives them a different opportunity that wouldn't otherwise be available. On behalf of DCS, I will note that the proposed seating reduction from 150,000 to 100,000 would increase our workload by about 40% in the number of grants that we have to issue. And note, in ordinance, we have 45 days to get the funds encumbered and 30 days after that to issue a notice to proceed in ordinance to give these folks, our grants and aid recipients, a shot at spending their money during the year. We also do carry over a number of grants, from year to year that don't fully expend. So if there is a seating reduction, we would recommend hire additional 2 staff to the grants and aid team in order to facilitate the additional burden. But open for any further questions. With me today, I also have Shana Kagi, our GIA administrator.
Thank you, Deputy Director. Members, questions for Deputy Director, Councilmember Kiaina.
Thank you, Deputy, for your presentation and for sharing with the committee members some of the challenges that you're facing, including with this proposal. So I'm just going to ask a couple of questions since this is my measure. And just so everybody knows why I did this because times are tough. And so while I can appreciate the larger organizations who have money, who I really think that we should have an income threshold because this is should be targeted for smaller organizations. The fact of the matter is that everybody is hurting, period. And under this measure, I just want to confirm the facts. Is it correct that 40 more organizations would be eligible for GIA?
Correct. A reduction from $150,000 to $100,000 brings about 40 new organizations that could receive funding.
And if I had inserted 125,000, how many organizations would be eligible?
12.
Okay, that's correct. It's a big difference. With regard to an income threshold for organizations or based on assets, what is your position on whether some of the larger organizations should not be eligible for applying for these funds, so that it would be more for smaller organizations in our communities and community-based organizations? What are your thoughts?
For the most part, the DCS, we administer what the policy decision from council is. So we're open on it going either way. We're kind of ambivalent on that. The feedback we've been getting from the larger nonprofits, these are the ones that are going to be largely impacted by any federal reductions. So they might be the most challenged in the times that are ahead of them. We do enjoy working with the larger ones. They do have, the manpower to stand things up quickly and get projects done. But, there's a lot to be said about the community nonprofits, the community-based ones that you mentioned, Councilmember Kiaina, as, getting them into our pipeline, uplifting them to perform at the next level.
Absolutely. And it's not just these community-based organizations, it's the populations that they serve, because people are hurting. And they are just as capable of helping these marginalized communities as any of the big organizations. My third question is, do you believe the grants and aid program is supposed to be a perpetual funding source for a lot of these organizations?
No, we even disclaim it. We disclaim it in our FAQs, the frequent asked questions, but we do get during our grant cycles when folks used to getting our funding don't get it. It does raise a lot of complaints for us, but we do warn them. We are forthright about it that it should not be relied upon source perennially.
Well, I appreciate that, and the reason I'm saying that is a lot of the people who are testifying are testifying as if it's perpetual. We will be impacting. They have already been awarded, so they have not successfully succeeded in the next fiscal year. So I just wanted to make that clear, because the whole idea for any nonprofit organizations is to get a diversified source of funding. And my last question has to do with serving Oahu's most vulnerable communities. Clearly, all of the organizations that have been awarded meet that threshold, but is it also not true that the organizations that did not get funded also have the capacity to serve our most vulnerable communities?
So when we do our grant scoring, we do score the applications in front of us. So, sometimes there are nonprofits, perfectly capable nonprofits, that just don't do as good of a job applying for the grant application. On the flip side of that, I also see grant applications that have been prepared by professional grant professionals that apply for grants, that submit good submissions that sometimes nonprofits can't live up to as well. So it's mixed.
Yes, but you have to concur that not all of the organizations that didn't receive funding are not capable. You have to concede that. It's just that there's not enough money. So for me, barring an increase in overall funding, which would allow for more organizations, I feel that this is the most prudent fashion for the city to move forward in the allocation of these funds. Very empathetic to federal funding impacts, I get it, but not at the expense of others. And that would be other organizations in all of our communities who are hurting, and the communities and people that they serve are also hurting. So all I'm trying to do is spread our kukua across the board. And I just urge my colleagues to consider where we are in this program and urge your consideration of moving this resolution forward.
Thank you, Councilmember Kiana. Members, any further questions? Councilmember Tolba?
I just wanted to echo Councilmember Kiana's, what she was saying. Deputy Director, you said the reason why this will be difficult is because of staffing. Can you explain more? Like if you're saying 40 more, if we move it to 100,000, 40 more recipients could receive grant and funding from us, but the challenges right now is because of staffing.
Correct. I mean, as I've stated before, our job at DCS, the Grants and Aid program is the council's, and we implement it, right? So in the ordinance, you can lay out what the parameters of the Grants and Aid program, any priorities, and those types of things. What I did share is that if we did lower it and I got 40% more work, 40 more applications through that process, that I would have to hire a couple more staff in order to get the grants out timely as well as administer them.
Okay, thank you. Do you like this proposal? I mean, what's your take on it? I want to hear your take on it because you've been doing this now for over 5 years. We lowered it so that we could touch more people and get more people. What's your thought on bringing it down?
I personally don't have an opinion on it. Like I said, I'm ambivalent on it. As we've gone through and we've been in the process of negotiating the contracts with service providers for this round in particular, we have been getting mixed feedback on that, right? Like what I did want to do through my testimony today was point out that, in the light of the federal crunch, it has generated some anxiety from the larger nonprofits that may also be facing a reduction of their federal funding that they normally get, and keeping some of those basic lifeline services intact. Meanwhile, I got to give a lot of kudos to Councilmember Kiana. There are so many great applications out there that we just don't have the funding to get to. And even, and speaking on behalf of the Grants and Aid Commission, a lot of them, they just have to refocus on scoring what's in front of them, because sometimes they know the program in the community, but when they don't communicate it in the application, and just to be fair on everybody's hard work and to be, they score according to us in the application, but they know the nonprofit in the community, they see their work, but it just doesn't get communicated. So, I mean, I really do have mixed feelings about it.
Okay, so, but even with the current situation we have right now, we still sometimes delayed on getting the money or the money funded to these organizations, correct? So that'll be my only reservation. Like, I like the fact that we are gonna distribute all that money, but if they cannot get them on time, which a lot of nonprofits need, but because of staffing, that'll be only my reservations on it. I love the proposal. I want to make sure that we give as much as we can to nonprofits, but if we cannot get it out fast enough, still challenges. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Tolba. Council Chair Waters.
Thank you. Good morning, Deputy Director. Can you remind the committee how much money that we appropriate for this program?
So it's 0.5% of the real property tax collections. We also add to that pot any lapse funding or nonprofits don't spend all their money and they give it back to the program, and that rolls over into this appropriation. For fiscal year 26, there was a total of $10,768,144.
Does that represent the 0.5%, or is that the 0.5% plus the carryover?
It's plus the carryover.
So it's typically about $8 million, right? Typically.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that we're seeing naturally with the increases in real property tax collections as property values rise is that we've been seeing that 0.5% rise. So yes, it's over $8 million usually.
And the 0.5% dedication, was that created by the council via ordinance or resolution?
It's in ordinance.
In ordinance? Okay, so if we wanted to increase the amount that we appropriate, we'd have to change the ordinance.
I think you have two choices. I think if...
Because I thought we did it before. In the past, we've increased the amount, but we didn't have to change the ordinance to do it.
So Director Kawano is telling me it's in charter, so I apologize. But I think what we do have the opportunity, you do have the opportunity of putting general funds into this one, additional general funds. I mean, it's a part of the budget process, yeah. So I mean,
Right.
you could increase that level too. But I mean, I'd have to advocate for the DCS budget proposal as approved by the mayor.
Of course. Okay. And creating the commission, was that done by charter or was that created by ordinance?
So the Grants and Aid Commission was created by charter.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Council Chair Waters. Members, any further questions? Committee Vice Chair Nishimoto.
Thank you. So I'm new to the city, but I was on the state side for a long time. And I worked on the grant and aid program from the House side for many years. So I'm familiar with a lot of the nonprofits. And the feedback I've gotten from them was that the 150,000 cap is too low, and that, you know, at some point it doesn't make sense for them to even apply for it because the amount is too small for the programs that they're trying to implement. Is that kind of what the feedback you guys are getting?
We've seen the Grants and Aid program change a bit over the years. So for example, it started in fiscal year 14 and 15 with no grant ceiling. And from fiscal year 16 through 21, the grant ceiling of $125,000 was implemented. 22 through 24 went up to $200,000 before coming down to $150,000 for fiscal years 25 and 26. We've seen, you know, so we have different experiences in different ones on the types of programs, the impact we can have with the grant program.
Because if some of these nonprofits are going to pay a professional grant writer to write their grant, and then they're capped at $150,000, that doesn't leave much room for them to even have anything for their program, correct?
It is a challenge, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Committee Vice Chair Nishimoto. Deputy Director, I had a couple of follow-up questions. You mentioned that lowering it to 100,000 would then increase it. You'd have 40 new organizations. How many are currently being funded with the 150 cap that we have?
85.
85, okay. And you mentioned that probably the greatest concern that the department has is having to hire 2 additional staff to then cover the projected 40 new organizations that will be eligible.
Correct. I mean, I think it would change based on the ceiling, but based on today's proposal at $100,000, the 40 additional service agencies that we would be anticipating, our recommendation would be 2 staff just to handle the additional workload. And as Councilmember Toba said, get the money out timely so these folks can start doing their work.
I know that since I've been in the council, one of the things the council has asked the departments repeatedly on is the many vacancies that have been in departments for decades long. Could this be, since we already are done with the budget for the fiscal year, could this be something where we take vacancies in the department and allocate them to here? I think I anticipate what you're going to say, but so that we don't have to create new positions, we just shift them. The money for the positions is already there within the budget. And you would have to fill those positions, but the creating and budgeting for these 2 new positions is already within the budget. If you move from vacancies, is that a possibility?
We could, I mean, some of our practice sometimes when I get money from, say, housing and urban development, so from the federal government above and beyond what I normally anticipate, we could have the option of hiring unbudgeted positions, if you will, and in order to administer the money and get that funding out.
And just so I can understand, a position of this nature, what would the pay range be for these 2 additional staff that would be required?
So this would be an SR22 Planner 4 position, so about $60,000 I think is the starting.
Thank you. Members, any further questions for Deputy Director at this time? Seeing none, thank you, Deputy Director. We'll now proceed with in-person oral testimony in the council chamber. Clerks, do we have any registered or non-registered testifiers for this item?
Chair, we have 2.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome to the chamber, I believe we have Maureen Purington. And if you could, when you come to the microphone, please push the on button and state your name for the record before you proceed with your testimony.
Maureen Purington. Aloha, Chair and Council members. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. My name's Maureen Purington. And I am the Executive Director for Help, Understanding, and Group Support for Hawaii's Seriously Ill Children and Their Families, otherwise known as HUGS. We are a small Hawaii-based nonprofit, and we do not receive any federal funding. On behalf of the nearly 300 families and 1,400 family members that we serve across Oahu, I respectfully urge you to maintain the current grants and aid award maximum of $150,000 per year per organization. The Hawaii Department of Health recognizes children with serious illnesses as a priority population. HUGS is the only nonprofit in Hawaii dedicated to providing long-term wraparound support services for these families. Grants and aid funding allows us to deliver nearly 50 programs annually, engage over 1,000 community volunteers, and reach families in every council district. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Purington. Members, did we have any questions for the testifier? Okay, seeing none, next we have Ms. Stephanie Hamano.
Good morning. My name is Stephanie Hamano. I am the Chief Impact Officer for YWCA Oahu. Good morning, Chair Okimoto and Vice Chair Nishimoto. Nice to see both and members of the Committee on Budget. And thank you for this opportunity. Nonprofit organizations play a vital role in our community by providing essential services and addressing critical gaps. At YWCA Oahu Fernhurst, GIA funding is instrumental in supporting women as they transition out of challenging life circumstances, including incarceration, substance use, recovery, and homelessness. GIA funding doesn't cover the full cost of delivering these life-changing services. However, the significant impact that this does provide is integral for us. Like many of our nonprofit peers, we're constantly seeking additional resources to sustain our programs. A reduction in GIA funding would place an even greater financial burden on our organizations. And while we appreciate the opportunity to fund additional nonprofit organizations, we would thoroughly be in support of our collaborative partners in being able to do that. So if we could consider perhaps additional funding for the GIA budget as a whole, that would be, I think, very much appreciated by all of us in the nonprofit.
Thank you. Members, do we have any questions for Ms.
I have a question.
Hamano?
I just wanted to
Councilmember
find
Toba?
out for both of the ladies, how many years have you received GIA from the city?
I believe for the Fernhurst program, we have received funding for about 10 years from the city GIA.
So for HUGS, I know I've just started in December 23, so I know we received in fiscal year 25, and we also are awarded in fiscal year 26.
Okay, thank you.
If I could ask Ms. Hamano a follow-up question for the YWCA. You mentioned 10 years, so was there any time is this 10 consecutive years?
Yes, I believe so.
So there's never a time where there was a gap and the organization did not receive the GIA?
I believe so.
And if you were not able to receive the GIA for a certain year, how would that impact? Would you be able to continue your services? It's $150,000.
If we were not able to receive GIA funding, I think some of the services would definitely be impacted. The GIA funding that we have right now funds several positions that are integral to our program services. For example, one of them is one of the very important features of our program for our target population is providing 24-hour security services for all of our residents to provide a safe venue. And, the funding from GIA, significantly helps us in terms of, being able to provide 24/7. We also provide additional support services. That's another position that's funded by GIA.
Okay, thank you for explaining that. Councilmember Kiaina did mention, and Deputy Director concur, that this is not should be seen as a perpetual type of funding. So in the event where you did not receive this GIA, so how would you then make up or compensate for the shortage in this 150,000? I see that you're saying it covers certain things, but if you are to function and operate not always expecting to have this, what would that look like for you?
Well, we're constantly having to look for additional funding. So, as far as we're concerned, we're always looking for different revenue sources, whether it be, other grant sources from federal opportunities of which we have been affected. We also are always looking for other ways such as social enterprise opportunities or other, so we don't have to fully depend, on government funding. So we realize that, and that's a constant struggle for us, but there is, so we are always working to also strengthen our partnership with private funders, of which, we have wonderful and very loyal funders in our.
Thank you for explaining that. Councilmember Nishimoto shared, experience in the House. When I was in the State House, I was able to visit the Fernhurst home, and it was really wonderful to see all that you're doing. But I think it is important to note, and thank you for sharing, that you're constantly looking for sources, not just relying on one sole area, but looking into every avenue that you can, public and private funding, to help support your cause, which is a very worthy cause.
Yeah, and that's definitely one of the things that we have, of course, focused on a lot more in the last year or so, is, how can we diversify even more, all of our funding sources for all of the programs that, we feel are equally important. And like, as I mentioned, as we partner with many nonprofits in the community to do our work. And so I can very much appreciate Councilmember Kiaina's, intent on this. So, we wouldn't all be able to do our work as impactfully as we do without the partnerships that we have in the community. So, if there could be any consideration to raise the amount that is available for this program, that would be sincerely appreciated, because, for many of us, we do, rely heavily on our government partnerships and support.
Thank you. And I appreciate that. I think it's worth noting, and I may channel former speaker, say Council Budget Chair, say he would say, when I was in the state, you guys did come to us and ask for assistance in not closing the home. That was what I was at risk at that time. Yes. So I would encourage you to continue to tap into the state and see what additional fundings you could get from them. We are always willing to, but we are limited in our capacity more than the state or other organizations or avenues are. So thank you. Councilmember Kiaina.
Thank you. I have some follow-up questions. Do you receive state GIA funding?
Yes, we do receive state GIA funding, not for the Fernhurst program.
Yes, but you do receive it. In what amount?
We received, I think, just for this current year, we received, let's see, a total of $500,000.
Okay. And, the state just announced, the governor signed into law a bill that would provide an extra $50 million to nonprofit organizations. I'm assuming you intend to apply, correct?
We do. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, members. Any further questions for this testifier? Thank you very much. Any further in-person testifiers for this item? Good morning, Angela. If you could state your name for the record.
Angela Melody Young, testifying, wishing to comment on the resolution. So when we're talking about reducing the GIA grant amount for these nonprofits that really need the funding to be able to provide for socially disadvantaged, marginalized demographics in society, such as those with disabilities, those suffering from domestic violence, family drama, individuals going through incarceration, mental health issues, suicide, and homelessness. So for the city to take away the funding or to reduce it, $50,000 is not very extreme, but it's still something that would impact these nonprofits. And so, for example, I actually donate to the YWCA, the Women's Leadership programs that work with the Women's Legislative Caucus for Dress for Success, as they're transforming the community for high school students that have programs that get donations from their
Angela.
business program.
Thank you for your charitable contributions. Thank you. Members, questions for the testifier? Councilor Chair
please.
Waters.
You often testify for, it sounds like you're saying for CARES.
Yes.
Can you explain what that is and briefly? And if you are a nonprofit, second and third, do you apply for grants and aid?
Thank you, Chair Waters, for the question. So CARES stands for Community Advocacy Research Education Services. And it's a grassroots movement, so it gives us freedom to legislate and advocate at the state and city council because we are not a nonprofit, so we're not as structured in terms of our financial structuring. It's more restrictive to legislate and to advocate if we were to be a nonprofit. And so GIAs, I think only nonprofits and businesses get GIAs. So we, CARES, we do not qualify, we're not eligible for a GIA because we're a grassroots movement. So what we can be compared to is, for example, the Oahu water protectors, right? So a passionate group. So I have kids from DOE schools, kindergarten to high school, and a few college students. And a lot of our advocacy relates to education. So they learn about the topics that the city and the state talks about all the time. For example, environment, pollution, and all these things.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, members. Any further questions for the testifier? Seeing none. Oh, did you have a question? Okay. We'll now proceed with remote testimony. Clerks, do we have any remote testifiers registered or non-registered?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you. Members, we are in discussion. Councilmember Kia Aina.
Thank you, Chair. You know, in light of the discussion, it's clear to me that I don't believe that, and I don't want any of the organizations present to think that I don't believe that you deserve the funding. You clearly deserve the funding, but so does a lot of other, so do a lot of other organizations who have not received the funding. I'm assuming you agree, correct? So I think at this time I would prefer that the resolution not move forward. I think that if we are able to increase the pot during the budgetary process, I think would be the most impactful, taking into account that the agency would still need additional staffing. And during that budgetary process, we could talk about pivoting vacant positions or allocating funding for those positions. So I guess I just appreciate this opportunity. I introduced this measure because of concerns from some of the smaller organizations who basically have zero. And I don't believe that their mission or ability to outreach to underserved communities is less meritorious. But I listened to all my colleagues, what they said, and that probably is the solution. but I would encourage everybody to just keep in mind that the GIA program is not a perpetual program. And I'm still mulling over whether we should have a maybe an asset threshold for organizations that qualify, because it's the smaller organizations who have a very difficult time in receiving funding. And a lot of times they work for free. You know, it's not just their board members, they themselves work for free because there's no money. I mean, Auntie Blanche McMillan in Waimanalo from Hui Mahiai Aina, no funding. It's all coming from the churches and from the private sectors. And she has a beautiful Kauhale project helping our homeless community in Waimanalo, and has a lot of agricultural activity. And I believe that, you know, these kind of organizations are directly serving our community. So I just want people to keep that in mind. But I would ask the chair to hold this resolution into further notice.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Kia'aina. Members, any other discussion? I want to thank you for really the real valid intent. I think your heart is very much open at this time, and I think it's good for us to know. I too have members of the community who reach out, and they're very small nonprofit organizations, and they wait every year hoping to hear their organization get accepted. And sometimes it happens, and they're grateful, and sometimes it doesn't. So I do want to thank you for being so mindful of the many organizations who, many of them exist in our communities who don't benefit from being able to receive GIAs. But thank you very much for the discussion. I appreciate, you know, Committee Vice Chair Nishimoto sharing his expertise working for the House and GIA for many, many years. I appreciate that. And thank you for those who came out to testify. Seeing no further discussion, and based on the discussion that we've had, the chair recommends that action on Resolution 25-186 be postponed to a date and time to be determined by the chair. Any further discussion, any objections or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Members, moving on to agenda item number 5, Resolution 25-203, authorizing a transfer not to exceed $5,460,000 in the general fund monies from the provision for homeless activities, current expense character or of expenditure, to the emergency medical services activity, current expense character of expenditure for fiscal year 2026 for the extension of the contracts for Premier Medical Group and North Shore Mental Health. With us today, we have Deputy Director of Emergency Services, Deputy Director Ian Santi. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Chair. Again, Chair Okimoto and council members, good morning. Again, Ian Santi, Deputy Director, Emergency Services Department. The request for the transfer is that we are currently have Premier Medical Group and North Shore Mental Health has been a medical respite that the city has been contracted with through federal money given us, transferred to us from the state. That money has run out on June 30th. We're extending the contract currently using HESD funds, and this provisional request is to replace those funds back into our account. We are pending some funds coming from the state also, and we're working with the Department of Human Services and the Governor's Office of Homelessness to recoup those funds. So what these funds allows us to do is to continue the great work that Premier Medical Group and North Shore Mental Health has done over the past year to about a year and a half with over 200 houseless individuals, finding them resources and providing them opportunities to get themselves back off the street. Individually, North Shore Mental Health has about 24 beds and Premier Medical Group has about 60 beds. So about any given time, there's about 80 individuals off the street in these facilities being treated medically, providing mental health care, and also facilitating them to get themselves into some type of housing program for long-term use. So I'm available for any questions.
Members, any questions for Deputy Director? Council Chair Waters.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm looking at Dr. Ireland's letter in Department Communication 568 dated July 11, 2025, where it says that Premier Medical Group and North Shore Mental Health supports the North King Street and Leahi Hospital respites for the homeless. What's going on at Leahi Hospital?
No, great question, Chair. So Leahi Hospital, North Shore Mental Health, we have worked out an MOA with them. We have a wing at their facility where we have 24 beds. It is a confined facility. So the primary difference between North Shore Mental Health and at Leahi and at Ala, this facility takes an individual that is houseless, brings them in for a strict program. They do not have in and out rights. They are kept in the facility. At their request, they can leave at any given time, but we try to create a program to build them back up off their feet. So they receive mental health care, medical care, paperwork transitioning for them to get their birth certificate, their social security card, all the needs that they can get housing and their bank accounts start back up.
And this is Premier Medical Group doing the Leahi Hospital respite?
North Shore Mental Health is doing the Leahi. Premier Medical Group is doing the Ala respite, which does similar services, but over there they have in and out privileges.
I see. And are all 24 beds filled?
We strive to fill all 24 beds. Right now, today, I can tell you 18 of them are filled, and that's based on availability. Because of the rules, I guess you could say, and the commitment to the program, sometimes it's hard to get a full, but we do have had times where we've actually had them full.
And these beds, are they filled with folks who come from that community, or is it from the entire island?
They come from all over the island.
I see. You know, when I was a public defender, I used to do the involuntary commitment hearings where police would pick someone up who is suffering from mental illness, take them over to the Kekela ward at Queens Hospital, and they would have a right to a hearing if they're dangerous, and kept there if they're dangerous to themselves or others. Oftentimes, the courts would find that they weren't dangerous, and they would be released. Do you folks work with the Kekela ward for folks who may be coming out of that?
So yes, we do work with the hospital, not specifically Kekela, but we do. It's a medical respite. So a lot of these individuals are from houseless. So we do take them from the various island hospitals that have been transported by EMS or by HPD into a hospital, admitted, and they're houseless, looking for a place to restart their lives. So we do work with everybody throughout the entire island.
Okay. And I just, if I could ask you to maybe concentrate on the homeless people that are in the neighborhood around Leahi Hospital.
Yes.
To get help. Like on the Diamond Head slopes, we have a lot of folks suffering from mental illness.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are in our top priorities, and we do try to concentrate with all of them. But yes, understood.
Because I will tell you, people who live around that area probably don't like the idea, but if you're taking people off the street who are currently in the neighborhood on the street, I think that'd be a little bit more acceptable to my constituents.
No, understood, Chair. And what I can tell you again is that's why over there where they're located, it's not an in and out privilege, meaning we explain to the individual that we're going to provide you shelter, we're going to work with you, we're going to get you care, and then we're going to get you back on your feet so we can get you into some type of housing. They're not allowed to even go out of the facility onto the street. So if they do that, they're pretty much resulting of no longer participating in the program.
Out of this $5.4 million, how much of that is going towards North Shore Medical?
So $3 million goes to the Ala respite, and 2.4 goes to, the remaining goes to the North Shore Mental Health, and that will take us to the end of the calendar year.
Oh, 6 months only?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Because this is a 24-hour care that we are providing.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Committee Vice Chair Nishimoto.
Thank you. So you said that the contracts are currently federally funded?
I'm sorry, what do you?
You said that the contracts are currently federally funded?
The contract was currently federally funded until June 30th. It was FRF funds that we received from the state through Department of Human Services. As we move forward, starting July 1st, we are working with the state because, again, it's the crossing of the fiscal years that we have to make some amendments to our contracts, and we're receiving funds from the state. I can't tell you specifically what funds the state's giving us.
And this is for an additional 6 months?
Correct.
Okay, and so it would be $3 million for Premier?
Yes.
And roughly 2.5 for North Shore?
Correct.
So, and you said Premier has 60 beds?
Yes.
And North Shore has 24?
Yes.
So the per bed per month total would be about $8,000 for Premier and about $17,000 for North Shore?
Correct. And the primary difference, again, with the two facilities is one, you're like in a hospital and you're not allowed to leave. The other one, you do have in and out privileges. So it does require more specialized care to make sure that they're watching there. What this also has done is actually prevented a lot of 911 calls for the homeless individuals on the street.
Okay. In January, the state Medicaid program received approval for its 1115 demonstration waiver, the recuperative care. Does this take into account that the provider would be eligible to receive Medicaid funds?
We've started those discussions already. We haven't had a confirmation on that, but yes, that we are currently in discussion to make sure that, to see if this is eligibility. So we did meet with the Medicaid.
Okay, because if it is eligible, you won't need this much money, right? They'd be reimbursed some.
Yes, correct. But we're working, but right now to execute the contract, we need that much money to start the contract.
Okay, so you guys start the contract, but then at some point along that process, you figure out that this would be eligible for the demonstration waiver. Then the contract goes down because they're going to get reimbursed, correct?
Correct. So we would do.
But you have a contract already, so how does that work?
So because we have the contract, we would complete the contract, and for, as you stated, it is only for 6 months. So as we are able to finalize the Medicaid reimbursements in hopes to continue the contract for the next 6 months or future down the line, we would actually decrease the contract by allowing for the Medicaid reimbursements in the future.
So the provider would get the Medicaid funds and the 6 months?
Not according to this contract.
Okay, so they would not be eligible
until we have a new contract in place.
Okay, but they could apply for it because when I read the recuperative care definition, it pretty much fits what you guys are trying to do here.
It does, sir, and I don't have the exact details. I can go back and double check with the Medicaid. We did have a meeting with them. We do work collaboratively with the Department of Community Services in those discussions, and I don't have a specific answer for you right now, but it's my understanding that we have a contract with North Shore Mental Health or Premier Medical Group today. They need to follow the terms of our contract. So in moving forward, we would put that clause in there about them getting the Medicaid reimbursement.
But does that contract preclude them from applying for the waiver funds on their own? Because they get reimbursed. We don't get reimbursed.
Correct. And in the past, with the federal contract, we were told when we had the federal contract through Corp Council that they were not eligible for any type of reimbursement because they had a contract in the city. So previously, we haven't. The current contract doesn't allow them for any type of reimbursement for any type of services.
Okay. And so why hasn't this been worked out in this contract? Because the approval was in January, correct?
Yes.
So how come it didn't go into effect on this contract, and then we could lower the amount that we're paying and increase the amount the federal government is paying for this?
We're working with the state Medicaid office, sir. That's the best we're trying to do.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Nishimoto. Members, any further questions? Council Chair Waters.
Thank you. Just a follow-up. So the 2.4 million is to fund North Shore Mental Health at the Leahi Hospital, which is a 24-hour, 7 days a week program. But what happens at the end of the year?
We're looking for the funding to continue the program. So the goal is to transition. So the hopes is, right, and the positive, some individuals take maybe a couple months, 30 to 60 days on average. It takes an individual that you come off the street, and if you have your ID, you have your medical, you have your birth certificate, you have your Social Security card, we set up a bank account for you, we get your doctors, you get your SNAP program, or you get your...
Are we doing antipsychotic medication there?
We support those individuals that need medical care for that type of situation are on those medications, and they do seek the proper medical care.
Because that's what's necessary in a lot of cases. You need to get on the right meds, and it takes a few weeks to adjust it so that you're not drooling all the time and whatnot. Seriously.
Sorry, Chair. Both facilities do have individuals that see psychiatric services as well as medical services. So whatever specific need of the individual that's there and they're stabilized or they're able to be stabilized, we help them.
Because I can see spending $17,000. I mean, it's really hard to see spending $17,000 per person per month, right? But if you're actually prescribing antipsychotic medication, which, by the way, has a side effect of death. This medication is really, really strong. I can see that. But if you're just doing driver's license and stuff like that, there's other programs like Mr. Las Panos can ask you, how much does it cost at the Sierra House, right? I was walking door to door and I came across this house in my district called the Sierra House. Deputy Director Las Panos, how much does that cost us? Are you familiar? It's a home where we have people suffering from mental illness who are there. They have roommates and they have somebody living there. Guaranteed, it's not $17,000 a month, and guaranteed, they're providing the same type of services that Deputy Santi just described. Why aren't we doing that?
So Chair Waters, I'm not familiar with the Sierra House program. It's not a program we currently fund. We can do some research and get the information to you folks.
I'm pretty sure it is.
But I think to provide some clarity to what Deputy Director Santi has been sharing is that the state budget works a little different than the city budget. So the state does have the money. They did get the funding awarded, but those funding and contracting doesn't take place. So once they get the money, we start the new fiscal year like we are now. Those funds in that bill aren't available generally for contracting until October. So that's kind of where we're at. We need some kind of funding as a holdover fund to keep these programs going until those state funds become available. So it's like a safety net right now for us.
Okay. Are you saying that the Sierra House is state funded, not city funded?
I know I don't have money in there, so I can't share. I don't know. I can take a look at it and get back to you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank
Can I
you.
make, Chair, I'm sorry, may I make one more comment?
Yes.
Chair, and I apologize, maybe I miscommunicated. Again, the services that are provided at both of these facilities is not as simple as the processing of their paperwork to get there. They attend programs for substance abuse, they attend mental health programs, they do occupational therapy, work-related, job-related skills that help develop them back because they've been on the street for so long, they have to come back into the world. They also teach them how to live by themselves or in a group home.
I'm curious, have you guys looked into the Sand Island Treatment Center as well as Hinamauka? I think it's like half the price. And they provide the same services.
They provide a very similar service. Sand Island Treatment Center, there also has to be the willingness for the individual to go there, the willingness for the individual to have the skills to work through it. So yes, we do have a working relationship with Sand Island Treatment Center, and that is a city work-related facility that we work with also.
Yeah. Okay. May I suggest you also work with the courts? Because people coming out of jail,
yes,
okay.
Thank you, sir.
Suffered from mental illness. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I had a couple of follow-up questions, Deputy Director. And you mentioned reimbursements from the state. So when do you expect to receive this reimbursement? And are we expecting the full amount? To what extent are we expecting the reimbursement?
We are expecting about 80 to 90%. We should be getting the amount as soon as the contract with the state is executed. So I think as Deputy Director Los Banos said, we're looking probably around October time. Yeah.
Okay. And you've mentioned, thank you, and you've mentioned the differences in the two different homes, one 60 beds, one 24 beds, and you mentioned that the requirements to, and I guess requirements to go to each one varies. Can you restate that again for the 60 beds
no problem.
versus the 24 beds?
So Premier Medical Group, the Ala Respite, has 32 30 kauhales on the property. So they have a little tiny home. So those individuals are able to go straight into a home. They have 32 respite beds inside the old First Hawaiian Bank, and those individuals require medical care. They're much more of a, we call a lower barrier entry facility because they're able to take the clients there, but they do very similar activities. North Shore Mental Health, because it's on the State Hospital of Leahi, we have a little bit more restriction, and they, again, the requirements are there are a little bit more understanding that you will be confined in this facility at your choice, and if you are able to leave when you want to leave, but it's to help you restart your life and to get into a program.
Thank you. So of the 60 beds, the 32 units, that one is usually filled to which, is it usually filled to capacity?
Turnover rate, it depends on the day of the week, and that goes with all our facilities on the island for any of our shelters or places. Both facilities have some individuals that have that are wheelchair bound. Both the facilities have individuals that do have mental health challenges, and based on capacity as well as the individuals that wanting to participate in the program, it can be, they have been filled, but most of the time there's at least one bed available.
So on average, there's one.
At average, I would say the census is 90%.
90%. And you said today for the other, for the
Yeah, they're both 90%, yeah.
The North Shore, 18 out of 24, and on
Right now
average,
today is 18 out of 24, yes.
on average it's that? Or
On average, on average it is that, and some days we are full, so again, it just depends on the day. There is a state website that also tells you through the Office of Homelessness about all shelters on the entire island, their capacity, and it does change every minute. There could be full in the morning, and by the afternoon, 3 or 4 or 5 discharges happen, or it could be open in the morning, and by lunch, people could be in the housing. So it is a very fluid situation.
I think I'm just trying to understand as well, some of the questions my colleagues have asked about, are we being duplicative? Is there other sources? It's a large amount of money. If we're funding something that's not fully filled to capacity, you know, is that wise? Are there other measures that we can take? So yeah, I'd like to see what, maybe you can give us the more clear data on it. Okay. I would like to see it in writing, if that's okay. If you could submit that to my office, that would be helpful.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. Members, do we have any further questions for Deputy Director? Okay, seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Deputy Director Santi. We'll now proceed with in-person oral testimony in the council chamber. Clerks, do we have any registered or non-registered testifiers for this item?
Chair, we have one standing by.
Okay, aloha and good morning again, Angela. If you could again state your name for the record.
Aloha, Chair. Angela Young, testifying on behalf of CARES in support of the resolution for the transfer of funds. So I've always been a fan of CORE, and I love helping the homeless. And so, you know, homeless people, they don't have people who care for them, and CORE has always been so helpful. It was envisioned as a team to provide snacks with like not as intimidating of an approach than traditional law enforcement strategy. So, you know, the homeless, they have socially unadjusted behavior issues. They have behavior challenges reflecting their lack of adequate social and family interaction. And so they often suffer from paranoia and distress and unable to accept help. But CORE is always really friendly and can actually approach them and administer care. So when we're talking about more mental health services partnerships, extension of funding of city services from the Emergency Medical Services Office to carry out much needed social services in our society, I think we should be a fan of it.
Thank you very much, Angela.
Yes.
Members, any questions for the testifier?
Could I mention one thing? Also, could I mention one thing? Chair?
Really briefly.
Really briefly. So I am on the official planning team for Hawaii Children and Youth, which was co-founded by Senator Suzanne Chan Oakland. And the office does a demonstration for emergency management response in collaboration with the sheriffs 2 years ago. And so it's really educational, but I can't testify on behalf of the state because I would have to ask my boss for permission.
Thank you.
So
Thank you for sharing.
I just wanted to,
Members, any questions for the testifier? Seeing no further questions, any other in-person testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, thank you. Proceeding now with remote testimony. Clerks, do we have any remote testifiers registered or non-registered for this measure?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you. Members, we are in discussion. Okay, seeing no further discussion, the chair then recommends that Resolution 25-203 be reported out for adoption. Any further discussion, any objections or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Moving on to agenda item number 6, Resolution 25-204, authorizing a transfer of Climate Resiliency Fund monies for fiscal year 2026 not to exceed $3,150,000 to the Department of Facility Maintenance, Stormwater Quality Activity, current expense character of expenditure, to conduct 2 stormwater planning studies not to exceed $1.5 million to the Department of Design and Construction, Administration Activity, current expense character of expenditure to support implementation of the climate change design guidelines, not to exceed $500,000 to the Department of the Managing Director, Office of Economic Revitalization Activity, current expense character of expenditure to support implementation of the Global Mayor's Challenge, not to exceed $750,000 to the Department of the Managing Director, Office of Climate Change, Sustainability and Resiliency Activity, current expense character of expenditure, to develop energy audits for city-owned housing projects and implement the Climate Champions Program, not to exceed $60,000 to the Department of Parks and Recreation, Recreation Services Activity, current expense character of expenditure, to develop climate change-related programming for the 2026 Summer Fund Program, not to exceed $25,000 to the Department of Parks and Recreation, Maintenance Support Services Activity, Equipment Character of Expenditure, to pilot water refill stations at city park sites, not to exceed $1 million to the Department of Transportation Services, Transportation Mobility Activity, current expense character of expenditure to expand Beaky operate options for transit commuters. Members, before us, we have 2 proposed hand-carried CD1s submitted by Councilmember Kia Aina, OCS 2025-0602/7/21/2025, 2:58 p.m., and submitted by myself, OCS 2025-0599/7/21/2025 at 1:56 p.m. The CD1 makes the following amendments. A, clarifies that the cumulative transfer of $6,985,000 in climate resiliency fund monies to the various departments and agencies will be from the provision for climate resiliency activity, current expenses, CE, character of expenditure. B, in the 9th whereas clause, corrects the department name to Office of the Managing Director from Department of the Managing Director. C, makes miscellaneous technical and non-substantive amendments. And with us today, we have with us the Director of the Office of Climate Change, Sustainability and Resiliency, Mr. Ben Sullivan. Aloha, good morning, Director Sullivan.
Good morning, Chair. Apologies. Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. It's my privilege to be here today to talk to you about the first year's proposed expenditures for the Climate Resiliency Fund. We appreciate all the good work that went into Bill 15 previously to pass ordinance to give us further guidance on this. I'm here to answer any questions on Resolution 25-204, authorizing $6.895 million from the CRF to the 9 projects provided in the list. I will quickly just summarize that the projects support capital planning for stormwater and green stormwater infrastructure, climate resilience and capital projects, food security, energy efficiency in city housing, community partnerships, and education on climate, improved access to drinking water in parks, and expanded bike share across the transit services. We also have several representatives from receiving departments if there's any specific questions that might apply to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Sullivan. Before I turn it over to members for questions for the director, I would like to go back to Councilmember Kiaina just to explain your hand carry, your amendments. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So for mine, as part of the overall funding stream, I believe that there was a proposal of $750,000 to be transferred to the Department of Facility Maintenance for a Ka'elepu Green Stormwater Planning Study. And as I would outline later, I have concerns over that. And what I'm proposing is that the 750 be for the removal of mangroves from the city-managed portions of Ka'elepulu Stream. So that's what my amendment does, and looking forward to having a dialogue on the issue during our questioning of the administration as well as during discussion.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Kiaina. That being stated, members, do we have questions now for Director Sullivan? Councilmember Kiaina, did you want to ask those questions now, or I come back to you?
Yes.
Okay.
If you can ask others and then you can come back to me.
Okay. Councilmember Toba?
Thank you. Director, can you give me the current balance of the Climate Resiliency Fund?
Certainly. The current balance is actually 0.5% of real property tax. And that amount is $871,465.
Got it. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I may have misstated. I'm sorry, $8,871,465. My vision isn't so great to read it off the sheet.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Councilmember Toba. Chair Waters?
Thank you. I'm happy to support the Parks Department. I did actually run into Director Thielen at a summer fun event last week, and she had talked to me about the two projects that are in this resolution. I did meet with Director Morton about Beaky, which again, I'm happy to support, but when we created this fund, I don't think this is really what we envisioned. Like, what about cesspool conversion? Any work on cesspool conversion? And isn't that a really, really bad polluter, cesspools? And doesn't the city currently have cesspools in our inventory?
Thank you, Chair, for the question. If I may just refer back to the discussion we had when we were working on Bill 15, what we indicated at the time is that the Department of Environmental Services is working on an interconnection study. And the importance of that study is that it determines which residents who may currently have cesspools might in the future be connected to the sewer system and which may not. At the conclusion of that study, we are prepared to put some funding into this in future years to support the conversion of cesspools, and we're also going to be talking to the state to figure out how we can dovetail with them because they also have a similar program. At this time, we don't want to make any of those expenditures because obviously we don't want to send someone down a road that to spend money on a conversion and then learn that they may be connected to sewer in the future.
How about the cities? I hear some of our parks are still on cesspools. Is that true?
I would need to get back to you. I'm not aware of that situation with perhaps the number or breadth of city parks that may be on cesspools.
Okay. But you agree with me that cesspools are a huge problem, right?
So again, what we testified to is that we agree with the problem of cesspools, and I think as it pertains to this fund, one of the things that we would like to suggest to this body is that especially for those areas where we're talking about coastal impacts to water and or water supply, we think those are critical. We are thankful that the Department of Health has really done a very good job documenting the cesspools and creating tiers for those cesspools. So it would be our suggestion, as previously testified, that we look to the cesspools with the greatest impact. And the reason I say that is there's actually quite a large number. And the number of cesspools that need to be converted would far exceed this fund if we just use this fund going forward to do that conversion. However, on a prioritization basis, we recognize there's an opportunity to support, and we also think that collaborating with the state is a way to get the maximum value for city and residents across the island.
Okay, I mean, another argument would be that you could save the money and accumulate it so that it would have more of an impact on cesspools.
Understood, sir. That's a reasonable suggestion.
Could you give us an update on the Alawai flood mitigation project, the one with the Army Corps of Engineers? I mean, I hear that's going to be super expensive, but is there anything that we could be doing at the city to defray some of those costs?
So I believe that there's quite a bit going on in the Alawai watershed, and certainly the city's involvement is important to that. But there is a project in here that is proposed island-wide that does lay the foundation for Department of Facility Maintenance to be in a better position to take on projects such as that. It's not specific to that watershed. As you may know, it's island-wide, and it has to do with master planning and facilities assessments, and we think that's a very important project. Because as you know, in the past, the Department of Facility Maintenance has been in a difficult position with regards to their access to capital and also their access to information about the condition of their facilities. And that has, to some extent, put them in a position where they're being reactive instead of proactive with their capital investments. And what I mean by that is they're having to respond to what's broken as opposed to saying, let's look out 10 years and understand what our investments need to be based on the condition of facilities. So we're really excited that that work is going to happen. I think it's one step back from what you're talking about, and I think what you're talking about is very important. But we are trying to lay the foundation here to be able to do that work next.
Well, this was the idea a few years ago where the Army Corps was suggesting 5-foot walls around the Alawai Canal. They wanted to build a detention basin at the Alawai Golf Course. That's the project that I'm talking about.
Certainly, and my understanding was that project did go up in cost from hundreds of millions to billions of dollars, and then there was some additional information, I believe, but I'm remiss to talk about that because I wasn't intimately involved in that project at the time, but there's certainly barriers. And I think what it speaks to is that we do need to take action in that watershed. There's a lot of analysis going on, and it's certainly on our radar to address. Obviously, the greatest impact is in the area of Waikiki and the condition of a compound flooding event. So what I will say is the Department of Planning and Permitting has been doing a really good job with an area plan for climate impacts, which is Adapt Waikiki 2050, and they'll be coming out with that final plan in the fall, which we expect to contain recommendations about how to address this challenge. Another avenue that we're pursuing for addressing the exact same issue that you're describing is through the One Water Plan process, and that process concludes at the end, September 2026. But we are already looking at identifying hotspots where there are multiple impacts and overlaps that we want to be able to focus on. So absolutely what you're saying is very important, and it's something that was certainly discussed broadly in the Department of Facility Maintenance Stormwater Best Management Practices Conference last week, which was a 2-day conference held at the Convention Center, and Alawai Watershed was very high on the list as far as subject areas to discuss.
Okay, you just said a lot, but did you start with that you're not familiar with the Alawai flood mitigation plan with the Army Corps?
It's not that I'm not familiar. What I was trying to indicate to you is that it predated my tenure as director, and I was doing other things. And so I am generally familiar with the planning, and I'm generally familiar with what the process was, but I don't want to speak out of turn in terms of my depth of knowledge on that project, and I would probably defer to colleagues in other departments who were more intimately involved.
Okay. So you can't give us an update on that plan then? You did say that it's going to cost, it was hundreds of millions, now it's billions, but can you provide any other information? Like how much in billions is this going to cost? And is the city going to pursue this, or aren't we going to pursue that?
I think this matter's been discussed before. I know it was over $1 billion. I would have to get back to you, and I will do that.
Okay, and yesterday there was an article in the Star Advertiser dealing with this Alawai watershed. I met with those folks, and in the beginning, they wanted us to tax every single homeowner in the Alawai watershed in order to pay for this, which really, in my mind, amounts to climate change, impacts of climate change. So I told them I wasn't going to support that because the cost of living in Hawaii is super high, but I asked them to go and look at other sources of funding, including perhaps this fund. Are you talking to those folks? It was in yesterday's paper.
Unfortunately, sir, I'm not familiar with the article that you're referring to.
Okay, may I suggest that you take a look at that? Because I think they have some really good ideas, they just don't have the funding for it. And I told them that, not sure the city can actually fund it right now, except through this fund.
Understood.
But okay. I do actually have a question regarding, let's see, the Global Mayor's Challenge. What is the Global Mayor's Challenge? And that's $500,000.
Yes, yeah, I apologize. We're planning to send over a revised description on this item, and I owe that to council. And that's because there's basically what's happening at this point is that the city was successful in applying to the Global Mayor's Challenge, and what it is it's an opportunity to apply for $1 million for really systemic problems that are faced by cities around the globe. We were selected as a finalist for that award. We have not been determined to be awardees for the million, but we were given $50,000. That $50,000 is intended for us to be able to workshop and develop and test some ideas about how to solve the problem which we identified. The problem that we identified is really about food insecurity, and really so it goes to the issues that we all know are really prevalent now, especially in the absence of federal funding, and how do we feed our community, and then what is the tie between that and local food production and local farmers. And so actually Deputy Director Fox is in Bogota, Colombia, as we speak, in a workshop with cities across the globe trying to work through opportunities, and she's there with OER Director Asselby as well, and they're working hard with the team to create a proposal that would leave us, create success in this area. The $500,000 is interesting because the limitations of the grant and the specifics of the award state that we had to define a very small area, a specific urban area, to be awarded, and so we selected the Iwile Kapalama area. However, we recognize that all along the rail, the issues are the same, and so this is a focus on like what kind of services, whether it be farmers markets or food system opportunities, could be created to help with this problem all along the rail line. And so the $500,000 is really our opportunity to extend that, whatever we design in this process, to the rest of the rail. The award for this is not expected out. We actually submit our final proposal, I believe, in the spring of next year, and then the award wouldn't be till later in the summer. So this funding is actually well-timed in that either way we want to do some of this work. We would scale back if we don't get the funding from Bloomberg, but if we do get the funding from Bloomberg again, it would allow us to do the work as awarded for Iwile Kapalama and then to go into further out onto the west side for rail services as well.
Well, I agree with you that food insecurity is important, but I mean, to me, I would focus more on growing food, right? I mean, that's part of it. We're not growing our own food. We're importing food, but okay. And then what about, let's see, the Climate Champions Program. What is the Climate Champions Program?
Sure. This is a program that our office actually kicked off last year or the year before, actually the year before. And then last year we started it with a $1 million grant from the Environmental Protection Agency. So that was the inaugural year. And what it constitutes is we selected through procurement, through a competitive process, 6 nonprofit organizations, and we supported them with mission-aligned climate adaptation projects. And what the support consisted of was support for staff within the nonprofit, support for an intern within the nonprofit over the summer, and additional training and opportunities for collaboration among the whole cohort of the 6 nonprofits. And it was a very successful program. Unfortunately, the current federal administration terminated the grant, and so we were only able to operate the first year, and this funding would enable us to continue to operate the program.
Okay, and then lastly, the stormwater planning studies. I know DFM submitted to the council years ago an idea creating a stormwater utility. Is that related to the stormwater utility?
It is, and I defer further questions to Director Albano, who's here, I believe, still.
Well, I don't want to hog it the whole time, but yeah, I would love if, Chair, if you could ask Director Albano those types of questions. Thank you. I'll
We can
defer to you.
continue if that's, either way, yeah. Okay. Director Albano, would you like to come up and answer Chair Waters' question? Thank you. And then Councilmember Kiaina had questions also.
Budget Chair, Gino Albano, Director of the Department of Facility Maintenance. As Director Ben mentioned, the planning study is related to the stormwater utility fee, in which we recognize that if we look at our aging infrastructure, climate change, it's inevitable that a stormwater utility fee is going to be required. So the planning allows us to be able to be in a good position to defend why we need a stormwater utility fee and use that master plan to then get public sentiment towards the council in due time approving a stormwater utility fee.
What kind of money is the stormwater utility fee supposed to generate per year? Because if it's 8 million, well, we got 8 million right here. So we don't have to charge our residents any more money.
I do have program manager, stormwater quality program administrator here to discuss perhaps information on our current budget and what we will need to be able to sustain stormwater utility in the future.
Okay, great.
Morning, Rando Wakamoto, Program Administrator for our Stormwater Quality Division under the Department of Facility Maintenance. So thanks, Chair Waters, for that comment and question. That as far as currently what we're seeing is the cost of services is about $110 million of what the city is spending, and what we're projecting in the future in the 2027 timeframe is that it will need to increase up to $173 million per year on average.
Per year?
Per year, yes. And that's both operating and capital expenditures.
So we're currently spending $110 million per year?
Both on operating capital, yes.
Wow. No, I know for sure we need to do this, but it's just expensive, right? In Kaimuki, right when it rains heavy, the stormwater pipes that deliver the water to the ocean is too small.
Yes. Yeah, and that's exactly what the master planning study will be able to do, is identify where those sort of choke points and also where there's capacity issues in which upsizing of pipes and being able to incorporate other measures like green infrastructure in order to help reduce the amount of that runoff that's being generated in a lot of these urbanized areas.
Yeah. You know, I did bring up the idea of starting with the federal government and the state paying first before we charge our residents. You open to that?
Well, unfortunately, from a legal standpoint, it's not like you can actually pick and choose who actually pays first. We can phase the program in a sense that it starts off on a smaller scale in terms of the fee and it increases over time, but the idea is that everybody pays all at the same time.
I see. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Yep.
Thank you, Chair Waters. Councilmember Kiaina.
Thank you. I want to talk big picture first, and then I'm going to go into the Ka'elepulu project. So first, for the office, I know that you guys recently submitted the projects on July 15th. Is it your intention for the upcoming fiscal year to propose your projects similar to the TAT projects as part of the budgetary process?
Yes, Councilmember, it is.
And the reason you didn't do it this year because you guys were still in the implementation stages, correct?
That's correct. And as you may recall, Bill 15 was still being considered during the budget process.
So I share similar concerns to Chair Waters with regard to just the overall quality of the projects. I feel that they are projects that could have been funded by their general budgets, their regular budgets, and for proposals like the OER proposal, I feel that just to put something in and you slap the word climate change, all of a sudden it makes it meritorious. And I'm quite frankly, I'm not impressed because this program is just up and running. I mean, part of this is to have impact, right? I mean, if you were telling me you're giving $500,000 to farmers or to create more community gardens in our city's Parks and Recreation Division, where we know that we are making incremental progress in providing food security for our communities, I think I would be a little more impressed. But a lot of these projects just seem like studies. So I just wanted to make that comment. And I'd like to go into Ka'elipulu. So did you want to make a comment to my comments, or can I bring up Director Albano?
No, I appreciate your concerns with regards to the
yes, and I'm hoping next year it would be a little different if this even moves out.
Certainly.
Okay, thank you.
If I may, the one comment I did want to make is that we do believe that adding the $500,000 and showing that the city has skin in the game is going to actually increase our chances of being awarded the $1 million. But that doesn't resolve your questions, and I appreciate what you're saying.
This is not a piggy bank.
Understood.
To be looking for funding sources because you didn't succeed in other areas. Our food bank is hurting. I don't know how you would be able to pivot to just outright give $500,000 to our food bank. I'm just saying that I think people need to put their, their hats on where they're looking at federal impacts, and every opportunity, whether it be GIA or this or TAT, with regard to impact on natural resources, how can we get this out to the people? Or how can we get it out to nonprofit organizations or city agencies that can also thereby pivot? So I just wanted to make that comment. And if I could bring up Director Albano, I want to talk about Ka'elipulu. As you know, I'll give you an opportunity to explain why you did this, but can I express my concerns first? Okay, so a couple of things. You've asked for $750,000, and the reason I'm concerned is a couple of reasons. First off, in fiscal 2022, I provided $1.67 million for storm drainage best management practices, and I know these are for actual practices, right? Those funds were not expended. And then fiscal 2024, that's over a 2-year period. Because it wasn't expended, I put in another $1.5 million, and I do know that your department endeavored to find a project in Kailua, which the community opposed. Having said that, during all of that time, I've been on here for 4.5 years. Not once has your department ever asked me for a planning study, including in the last fiscal year. So fiscal 26, during the budgetary cycle for planning, I would have obliged and put that in your budget. The reason I have a problem for this is that's what you're asking for, is a study that could have been done all these years. And what worries me is I'm 4.5 years in here and I can't account for a single project regarding stormwater management for my district. And so my amendment, my CD1 proposes to use that 750 because the removal of mangroves has been a big issue in Ka'elipulu Pond and stream, and that should take care of it. Now, the good news is the Department of Land and Natural Resources has received funding to take care of a mangrove removal for the state-owned, so I'm only asking for city-owned. And as you know, invasive species management is a criteria for this set of funds. The other reason I am concerned is because in 2008, we have a report called Stormwater Best Management Practices Plan for 4 major outlets at Ka'elipulu Pond. And this was for the Department of Environmental Services. I'm assuming, were you guys not in existence in 2008?
That is when stormwater quality was still with ENV at that time.
Okay, so we have this study, and I understand from stakeholders on the ground that it's still relevant. And so I'm wondering, why do I need another plan when we already have a plan? And what have you done to implement the recommendations for here? I'm not trying to be cheap, by the way. I'm just expressing my frustration with what I have perceived as me trying to fight for my community, and I don't have a project to account for. And second, I want to know why we have a plan here, and what have you done to implement the recommendations or use this as a springboard? Because $750,000 for what? Would it be cheaper to simply look at this and maybe update it for $150,000, and then you give me the rest of the money for mangrove removal?
Thank you, Councilmember Kiana, for your concern. Now, I did bring Randall up because I only have been with the city for 2 years, and I don't have the history in terms of the community's concern with stormwater quality. So I'm going to have to defer to Randall to explain some of the history, but there is certainly reason for what we did as the department. And so when it comes to the planning funding, that's operating budget. And so we have had concerns trying to obtain planning budget, knowing that we have an overall city budget to balance. And so as much as we have tried to advocate internally within the administration, we have often had to defer planning as it relates to stormwater. However, we recognize that you are trying to do your best when it came to the council ads, when it came to capital projects. And as you've been made aware, it takes time to be able to plan, design a capital project. And therefore, those were the issues that came with those 2 budget ads. We've done our best to try and address it, and we will continue to try.
In the future, with regard to planning, and all of the other agencies do it, okay? I could have put in the funding, but how would I know that? So I know you have your internal processes and go through it, but the reason other agencies are able to get some of their either planning or dollar amounts for CIP is because, they kind of talk story with us.
And I have made that clear to our leadership that we have to talk story.
Okay, I know, but I'm 4.5 years in.
Yes.
Okay, so.
And I hope I've demonstrated for the last 2 years that we have been trying to talk story with council members.
Okay, so my question to you is, what happens if you don't get this money then? Because I want to do the mangrove removal. How is it going to hurt you?
Well, it then defers the ability to address the community's concern as it relates to the overall stormwater utility in the area. But I do want to make sure that we do support this floor draft. However, it does take time to implement this in 1 year, a fiscal year. I think in 2016, the department tried to clean the mangrove back then. They had an executed contract, and that particular contractor at that time thought he or she had the scope of services defined well, and ultimately that contractor failed and the contract was terminated. So we do have concerns trying to address it this year. We do have to get a Army Corps of Engineer permit as it relates to operating heavy equipment within the waterway. We have to get permits or agreements of right of entry from private owners to get to the mangroves. And we then have to find a master agreement contract that is currently in place that can clean mangroves. This is a specialized service, and we may not have a current master agreement to do it this year. We feel like if this fund continues, we can do it next year with proper planning, but unfortunately for this year, we feel like it's going to be too difficult to do it in a timely manner to execute a contract to have the mangrove clean.
Okay, I don't know if I agree with you on that. So it doesn't have to be completed. The contract just needs to be executed. But with regard to this 2008 plan, Why did you not act upon this, the recommendations in this plan?
Brando Wakamoto, Program Administrator. So thank you, Councilmember Kiaina, for that question. So we have implemented majority of those recommendations. There are maybe one or two that we've not completed. So we've basically retrofitted a lot of the storm drains in that Kailupulu area by putting in screens. We've put in over 110 screens in that area. We've also implemented by putting in storm drain filters in over 30 catch basins. We've also done a stream restoration project, which was recommended in the study along Hele Channel, as well as along Kamahele Ditch. There was for these debris screens to be placed in the channels itself. That one was studied further, but because of capacity issues within the channels, it was recommended not to proceed with that because it could cause flooding issues. So that's why we didn't proceed with that study. But just wanted to let you know that we have implemented, for those 4 major outlets, we have implemented a number of projects.
If I were to allow this study to move forward, when is it going to be done? And do I have any confidence that you are going to be ready to implement a CIP project before I leave office?
We are working on a particular design that is going to expand on the screens that we just mentioned in the commercial district along the Hamakua area. That's one that we're currently scoping out at this time.
No, I'm talking about for the $750,000.
So that is going to be looking at it from a more broader scale in terms of opportunities for implementing different types of green infrastructure, that we're taking the recommendations and the proposals from the community, but also looking at our city assets and making sure that they're kind of all, is there going to be a comprehensive plan? So the study itself, we're in the process of making a selection if the funds were to be available in terms of being able to execute a contract within the next year.
No, that's not good enough. When is it going to be completed?
So the study itself could be completed within roughly in about 18 months to 2 years.
Oh my God.
So that's because there's a lot of data that needs to go in.
No, I know. I'd rather you look for other funding to use that. So, okay.
We have looked at other sources of funding.
No, I understand, but I'm just sorry. I cannot be sitting by right now for that to happen. I got to figure something out. And I do know that you have the upcoming town hall meeting. So, okay, thank you for your comments. And
Yep,
so I think I stand by my amendment, my CD1.
Thank you, Councilmember Kiaina. I had a question for Director Sullivan, if members don't have any further questions. Thank you, Director, for meeting with me. It seems like you had met also with Council Chair Waters, and I appreciate you answering our questions. I had some of the same concerns. I think in our meeting, as you can see, I'm hearing Council Chair Waters mention some of the things I had asked you. I will say I was a little disappointed. One of the things I asked you was if you could prioritize to me, based on the list that you had presented, what would be your top priorities? And I will say I was disappointed. I didn't get an email until 8:30 this morning, right before this hearing we met last week. Because I know ideally it would be nice to say everything is priority, but if we don't have an endless amount of money at our disposal, I really wanted to know what you would prioritize. And I think in hearing some of the concerns that my colleagues are saying, some of these projects, while I do agree with DFM's projects that are necessary, I had the same concerns with some of the others. And so moving forward, I would like to see, and I understand that this was a fund that was created in the process. You had a short amount of time to figure this out, but I think I kind of echo the same concerns as Chair Waters. Some of these projects I wouldn't prioritize as necessary at this time. And so moving forward, if this measure goes through, because we're using up $7 million out of the $8.8 million in what you're proposing, it would be probably more prudent to see the projects in their truest form, how it relates to what your mission is supposed to be. And so I would ask that. And did you have any response to what I've shared so far?
I appreciate the concern, and certainly that is our intent for next year. We are developing a criterion and ranking system, so that would allow us to really associate points and priority to the projects with a committee that's going to be reviewing this from across agencies. And so that is definitely the intent, and I do appreciate the frustration, and certainly as you acknowledged, this is the first time we're doing this and there was limited time. And as to not responding to you today, that's my fault and I apologize for that. I will say that I felt an obligation to check with the rest of the team and we met, I think, on Friday, so I didn't have the opportunity to do that. It would be unfortunate for me to make a judgment on my own without conferring with the other departments that one project was more important than another without previously having considered that.
Thank you. Of course, every department is going to say, or every office is going to say that theirs is, but as a director, I hope that you're knowing that you're going to be looking over this fund moving forward. You then need to assess what people are giving to, the departments are giving to you, and prioritize that way. That would be something that I'd like to see. And I did have the same questions with you in our meeting, as well as what Councilmember Kiana said, that some of this could have been done during budget. That would have been better for us, I think. But understanding that this was a fund that was just created, and I appreciate the efforts that you and your team have put forth into getting this to us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Members, do we have any further questions? Okay, thank you. Moving on to testimony, we'll now proceed with in-person oral testimony in the council chamber. Clerks, do we have any registered or non-registered testifiers for this item?
Chair, we have one in person.
Okay, thank you. I believe we have with us Mr. Micah Munikata. Good morning, Mr. Munikata. If you could say your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Good morning, Chair Okimoto, Vice Chair Nishimoto, members of the committee. Micah Munikata here on behalf of Ulupono Initiative. Just want to say that we're very supportive of this resolution. We appreciate the city's efforts through the leadership of OCCSR to really start moving on this fund. Chair Waters, introducing this Bill 15, what seems like it took about 2 years to get to where we are today is very exciting. To see dedicated funding going towards our climate mitigation and adaptation efforts as a city it's an exciting step. I think, seeing these projects listed today, we are very supportive of things like stormwater planning studies, climate education programs, energy audits, and BICI expansion. These are all things we value at Ulupono, and we look forward to collaborating with the city on continued efforts in these various ways. I obviously understand that this fund can be used for a ton of things, but it is exciting to see that there is a dedicated resource to start to meet some of these needs. So as we look to move forward, we really appreciate the city's efforts and the council's support of projects such as these. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, members. Do we have any questions for the testifier? Seeing them. Any further testifiers? Thank you, Angela.
Aloha. Angela Young testifying in strong support of this resolution. So I'm a fan of the Climate Change Office. My students did the new food systems competition for the office. And in this generation, to perpetuate the work of the prior generation to enhance our city's resilience to the impact of climate change and elevating climate transportation, elevating climate-aware transportation with non-toxic ways of doing transportation is very necessary to connect communities. And so I think what's helpful is this resolution focuses on the internal funding mechanisms of a pot of money going to city offices. And I think if the source of revenue can be increased, for example, assess valuable properties to raise a source of revenue to increase that source, the real estate property taxes to generate more income from valuable
Members,
properties.
do we have any questions for the testifier?
Can help with funding.
Okay, seeing no questions for the testifier, any other in-person testifiers on this measure? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for being here with us. If you could state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony. Push it one more time and it'll turn on with the red light. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the council. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. My name is Eduardo Hernandez. I'm with the Hawaii Bicycling League. I serve as their advocacy director. I'm here today. I hope you have my testimony in front of you. we've been working, so our mission is to get more people to ride bicycles for health, recreation, and transportation. We definitely believe that a bicycle is a solution to so many challenges that are faced by individuals and families across our community. It is affordable transportation. It is a carbon-free transportation. And Bicky has been one of the most popular bike share programs in the nation. But there's been no investment in it for the past number of years. We're seeing a serious decline in the number of bicycles that are available. System reliability is decreasing, and we're really concerned. This funding opportunity is essential, and we urge you to support it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Members, do we have any questions for the testifier? Okay, seeing no further questions, thank you for being here. Moving on to remote testimony. Do we have any remote testifiers either registered or non-registered?
Chair, there are none.
Seeing no further testifiers, members, we are in discussion. Councilmember Toba.
Thank you, Chair. I'll have to be voting no on this. I appreciate the good work done by the department and the administration to propose projects for this fund. I do think we have other pressing matters like we heard for the last almost 45 minutes, like cesspools. So I'd like to see a broader discussion for long-term goals for the Climate Resiliency Fund. My suggestion is that we break up the resolutions by department. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Toba. Any further discussion at this time, noting your no vote? Council Chair Waters.
I do support Councilmember Kiaina's CD. I agree with Councilmember Tolba, but I'll be voting with reservations today. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Chair Waters. Any further discussion, members? I want to thank you for all who have came out to testify and explain. I think we all have expressed concerns with the way this process has unfolded. However, I would like to just make note again that I know that the director was under a specific timeline based on when we had created this new fund. That being said, the chair recommends that resolution 25-204 be amended to the hand-carried CD1 identified as OCS 2025-0602/7/21/2025 at 2:58 p.m. Any discussion on the amended hand-carried CD1? And for clarification, this was Councilmember Kiaina's hand-carried. Councilmember Toba, are you voting no on all measures? On all, okay, so noting the no vote from Councilmember Toba, Chair Waters, was your reservations on the amendment as well? No, okay. Okay. We'll then take a roll call vote. Is that correct? No need, okay. Okay, just noting the no vote, Councilmember Toba. The chair then recommends that resolution 25-204 CD1 be reported out for adoption. Any further discussion? Noting the objection from Councilmember Toba and with reservations from Chair Waters. Any further objections or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. At this time, I would like to take a brief recess. We have with us in our chamber, we're so grateful to have a delegation from the Incheon City Council with us today. Some of us were able to visit Incheon on a sister city visit, was it 2024? About a year or so ago. So we will take a brief recess, and we'd just like to welcome you to the chamber, and we will do a little informal get-together. Thank you very much. Recess at this time. Aloha and good morning. It is 11:44 a.m. and I'd like to call the Committee on Budget back to order. Joining us again in the chamber, I'd like to welcome Council Chair Waters and Committee Member Talba, as well as welcome Councilmember Dos Santos Tam. Thank you for being here. Members, before we continue with our agenda, we'd like to really just welcome our special guest, if you could indulge me on this. We do have with us a delegation of the Incheon Metropolitan Council. So I'm going to recognize you and you could stand up, and if the council chair would like to say any words, we would welcome that. With us, we have Chairperson Hae Kwan Jung. Stand and raise your hand. As well as Chairperson Daijung Kim. Chairperson Kyung Hee Yoo. And Councilmember Jung Kyo Suk. I'd like to welcome them. We'd be remiss to not also recognize Mrs. Ko, who is our ambassador between us and our sister cities, especially our Korean sister cities. Thank you. Mrs. Ko, did the chairman want to say any words to the body? No? Okay. Well, thank you for being here with us. Thank you again for those who were patient during our recess. We'll now continue with agenda item number 7, Bill 49, 2025, amending provisions relating to the real property tax home exemption. Introduced by myself and Chair Waters. With us, we have the Director of Department of Budget and Fiscal Services, Director Andy Kawano.
Good morning, aloha. Budget Committee Chair Okimoto, Chair Waters, Honorable Council members, Andy Kawano, Director of Budget and Fiscal Services. With regard to Bill 49, BFS does not oppose Bill 49. You know, we believe that, we understand that from time to time, the exemption amount has to be reviewed. There is a fiscal impact. When you increase the exemption amount by $20,000, effectively for each taxpayer, for each parcel, we reduce the tax revenue by about $70. So if you count the parcels that are owned by the 65 and over class, you know, we're talking about nearly 80,000 parcels. So you multiply 70 times 79,700, and the tax impact is about $5.6 million. We believe that, you know, after looking at I believe a CD1 council draft, there is discussion to move up the exemption even more. You know, I think for 65 and over, move it up another $140,000. And if you do that, there'll be, you know, a significant impact to the revenue base. Therefore, BFS still strongly recommends, as we have in the past, that we discuss these types of real property tax related bills in a permitted interaction group, so we can discuss all of the bills holistically, looking at the bills together in unison, and you know, discussing fiscal impact, and you know, coming up with a plan, because there are different bills that impact real property tax, including the real property tax credit. There's Bill 34 that's coming up. I'm not going to talk about it too much. That you know, impacts the threshold for Res A. There's Bill 48 that discusses the long-term rental on the property, and the petition for dedication to Res A tax rate for properties currently in the Res A class. So we should look at all of that together, and you know, with that, we urge council members to consider the permitted interaction group, and I'll be around for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Kawana. Before we turn it over to questions for the director, I'd like to welcome to the Chamber Committee Vice Chair Nishimoto. Members, do we have any questions for Director Kawano? Okay, thank you, Director Kawano. We'll now proceed with in-person oral testimony in the council chamber. Clerks, do we have any registered or non-registered testifiers for this item? Okay, I'd like to welcome Angela. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Angela Young, testifying on behalf of CARES in strong support of Bill 49. So it's nice to care about seniors and kapunas, and the exemption amount is being raised from 160 to 180, a minor adjustment in home exemptions for a classification of disadvantaged demographic. And so, you know, I come from an Asian American household where we have a few generations living in one house. And so as society shifts from a culture where we were once not aware of these things about caring for the generation above us, I think in our generation, as things transform in society, reflecting the community's care for senior citizens is very important. For example, it's like having a prime parking spot, right? But then like giving it up to someone who's has more of like a senior citizenship status. I think that's really caring.
Thank you, Angela.
And I think this bill is kind of in alignment with.
Thank you, Angela. Members, do we have any questions for the testifier? Okay, seeing none. Do we have, Madam Clerk, do we have any other in-person testifiers? If you could come to the microphone, push the on button, and state your name and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. My name is Linda Howe. I actually was trying to hold out long enough to testify this afternoon on Bills 34 and 48, but I have to go home and take care of my grandkids. So I have, for several years, been...
Are you testifying on Bill 49 at this time?
I am in support of CD1 for 49, raising the exemption to $300,000. May I also comment on the other bills?
Within your time limit, please proceed.
Yes, what I would like to say is I have been involved in and supportive of some sort of resolution to create more affordable long-term housing for renters. And I would be happy to serve on a PIG if that was organized. And I thank you for trying to find a way to support long-term local renters and reduce their taxes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, do we have any questions for the testifier on Bill 49? Okay, thank you. Do we have any other in-person testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you. Proceeding now with remote testimony. Clerks, do we have any registered testifiers for this item?
Yes, Chair, we have Natalie Iwasa.
Good morning, Natalie. If you could push unmute and proceed with your testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie Wassa, for the record. I did submit written testimony very late this morning. I oppose this bill. You know, as you increase the exemption for homeowners, it means that somebody else must pay for that lost revenue or services decrease. You can't just decrease revenue and expect no other changes. And, you know, what about the landlords who are over 65, who are maybe supplementing their income with a rental property? This does nothing for them. In fact, it makes the disparity greater. And also, please remember that not all property owners who are 65 or older are disadvantaged. I mean, some of them are quite wealthy. So there's no way, there's no mechanism to separate the income in the real property tax in that manner. So I oppose this, and thank you for allowing me to testify.
Thank you, Ms. Iwasa. Members, do we have any questions for the testifier? Thank you. Do we have any other remote testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you. Members, we are in discussion. Councilmember Tolba?
We voted with reservation. I want to do what we can to provide a tax relief to our residents, but I'm concerned about the estimated $5.5 million in revenue loss. So I hope that we can move forward with a PIG to discuss the impacts of the bill and the next bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Tolba. Members, any further discussion? Okay, seeing no further discussion, the chair recommends that Bill 49, 2025 be reported out for second reading and scheduling of a public hearing. Any further discussion? And noting the reservations of Councilmember Tolba, any objections or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Moving on to agenda item number 8, Bill 50, 2025, amending provisions relating to the real property tax home exemption. With us again, we have the Director of our Department of Budget and Fiscal Services, Director Kawano. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Budget Chair Okimoto, Honorable Council Members, Andy Kawano, Director of Budget and Fiscal Services. With regard to Bill 50, my comments are similar. We don't oppose the bill. We have concerns that if the exemptions grow too large, we have to address fiscal impacts, and therefore we will. It will make a lot of sense to get into a permitted interaction group to talk about all of the active bills that impact real property taxes. With regard to this bill, I submitted testimony, Department Communication 575, provided some background information that for those parcels owned by owners under the age of 65, we're talking about 72,500 parcels. If we provide a $20,000 exemption, every owner of the parcel will receive a $70 tax reduction. So $70 times 72,500, you come out to about $5.1 million, in terms of lost city revenue. We would have to, reprioritize what we have available to, programs, activities, and other services that the city provides in general. So I'll leave it at that and then take questions.
Thank you, Director Kawano. Members, do we have any questions for Director Kawano? Thank you. Seeing none, we will now proceed with in-person oral testimony in the council chamber. Clerks, do we have any registered testifiers for this item in person?
Sure, we have one in person.
Okay, thank you, Angela.
Aloha, Angela Young testifying in support of Bill 50. So the dollar amount is being raised from $120,000 to $140,000. And so this is helpful because it's a financial provision for the middle class families qualifying and are eligible for this financial asset. So I think what's anticipated in the series of bills relating to property tax is to accommodate families with more financial asset provisions. So having a house and being able to own a home can mean something for families. Homeownership, instead of it being a burden, is a valuable financial asset. And I think the PIG is a good idea because it does have to make sense in terms of the revenue, like income and adjustment within the city's internal budgeting system, because if there's less money coming in, then the revenue of a profit for a source of income from the city has then to be adjusted to balance this. And so getting the Board of Realtors to testify and to assess how it will influence the real estate market will provide really good input to this discussion.
Thank you, Angela. Members, if we have any questions for the testifier? Seeing none, are there any other in-person testifiers for Bill 50?
Sure, there are none.
Thank you. Proceeding now with remote testimony. Clerks, do we have any remote testifiers, registered or non-registered, for this measure?
Chair, we have Natalie Iwasa.
Aloha, is it afternoon yet? Good morning still, Natalie. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you. It's afternoon where I'm at. Natalie Wassa for the record. So first of all, I did submit written testimony late this morning. I have an error on it, and I apologize for that. And I'm going to discuss something with Andy regarding the cost. But I oppose this bill. The CD1 especially almost doubles the exemption. And then, like I said, on Bill 49, that lost revenue has to be made up by somebody, and typically it's been made up by the residential A classification. So I feel like the city's tax policies are unfairly rewarding those homeowners who live in their homes and punishing the landlords who provide housing for a lot of other people. And so I ask you once again to look at the removal of exemptions, or actual reduction would be okay in some cases. But we need to make our system more equitable. And again, I oppose both the 50 and the CD1. Thank you for allowing me to testify.
Thank you, Ms. Iwasa. Members, did we have any questions for the testifier? Seeing none, are there any further remote testifiers for
There are
Bill
none.
50? Thank you. Seeing no further testifiers, members, we are in discussion. Councilmember Tolba, noting your reservations. Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay. Seeing no further discussion, the chair recommends that Bill 50, 2025 be reported up for second reading and scheduling of a public hearing. Any further discussion? Noting the reservations of Councilmember Tolba, any further objections or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Moving on to agenda item number 9, for discussion, Bill 34, 2024, addressing real property taxes. Members, we have a proposed posted CD1 OCS 2025-008-1/29/2025 9:56 a.m. submitted by Councilmember Cordero. For your information, the amendments are listed on the agenda. And with us, we have, again, the Department of Budget and Fiscal Services Director, Andy Kawano.
For the record, again, Andy Kawano, Director of Budget and Fiscal Services. With regards to Bill 34 and the CD1, since it's just for discussion, I strongly recommend that if we take a look at this, we discuss it in a permitted interaction group. When you look at the CD1, if the threshold for residential A classification is raised from $1 million to $1.5 million, what's going to happen is the parcels included in residential A will substantially be diminished. So we go from 30,000 parcels and upwards down to under 7,000 parcels. And our typical practice is revenue neutrality for all of the people that would fall into Res A. So to ensure that the folks that become Res A at $1.5 million and above pay about the same amount of taxes that they're paying now, at the $4 up to $1 million and above $1 million, $11.40. The rate structure would have to change significantly. So when I say significantly, we're going to have to look at a rate structure like perhaps $6.50, up to $1.5 million. For the next tier, we may have to look at $15 or more. And then for that third tier, that upper tier, we're looking at more than $18, $18.50. So it's the Res A class with a smaller amount of parcels will pay a lot more. And they'll have to pay a lot more to reach revenue neutrality. So that is why I'm stating that we need to discuss this in a PIG if we're going to look at the threshold. And it might be good to look at it. We haven't changed the $1 million threshold for Res A for a while. So I put that out there. Also, the bill may have to be reissued because the effective date will not work. I believe it's, if I got it right, CD1 says July 1st, 2025, which is passed. We've already identified the parcels in residential and residential A. We cannot implement on that date. We're going to have to change that date going forward. And I'll be around for questions.
Thank you. Thank you for making that note, Director Kawano. Members, if we have any questions for the director, thank you, Chair Waters.
Thank you so much. Real quick, it'd be helpful if you can give us the exact numbers. How many, for both the Bill 34 as well as the CD1? You don't have to do it today if you don't have those numbers, but I know you talked about 30,000 units down to under 7.
Yeah, under 7, we're looking at closer to 6,700 parcels.
6,700 parcels, and that's if we raise the threshold to 1.5 million?
1.5, yeah, to get into Res A, because everyone under 1.5 will be paying residential rates.
And then if we raised it to 1.3, that would go from 30,000 parcels to how many?
Roughly, I have a table here, so it's not exact. We can issue something in writing if needed, but we're right under 12,000 parcels.
12,000.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair Waters. Any further questions for the Director? Councilmember Dos Santos Tam.
Thank you, Chair. Building upon that line of questioning, I think it would also be helpful for us as a council to get some data on all non-owner occupied residential parcels. That is, whether it's in the Res A category or below the current $1 million threshold, so we can understand the distribution of all of these values. Because it occurs to me that part of the reason why we're having this discussion is the property values keep going up. And when they drew the line at around $1 million, which is a round number, a few years ago, that number obviously has moved, right, where that threshold is. I'm also interested, based on the proposal to create a third tier at $3.5 million, where that lies in the percentage values of properties. Are we talking about the top 5% of properties, the top 10% of properties, or is it really just the top 1% of properties? Because I think that also makes a difference for us in understanding in the future how we can further change our residential A structure. Can the department produce that kind of analysis for us?
Yeah. It may be better to be more exact and get a laundry list of questions from you, council member, and we can respond to you and the rest of the members.
Can do.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councilmember Dos Santos Tam. Any further questions, members? Okay. Seeing no further questions, thank you, Director Kawano. We will now proceed with in-person oral testimony in the council chamber. Clerks, do we have any registered or non-registered testifiers for this item?
We have one in person.
Aloha, good morning.
Thank you. I'm Linda Howe. I'm going to be late to pick up my grandchildren. I'm strongly in support of Bill 34, which would increase the threshold to 1.5 million. I don't think the council intended more than a decade ago to tax renters, the Alice households in our community, more than people who own their homes. And that's what's happening with this. You're having renters pay more than homeowners, which is the opposite of your stated goal of providing affordable, long-term, stable housing for our community. So I would strongly approve and endorse this effort. That threshold needed to be amended a long, long time ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Howe. Members, do we have any questions for the testifier? Seeing none, do we have any other in-person testifiers? Thank you, Ms. Howe.
Aloha, Angela Melody Young, testifying on behalf of CARES. I'm wishing to comment. So it's interesting that in this section, the real properties are classified in this classification from highest and best use, I think, to lowest and the worst, if I'm reading it right. So I think from someone who's studying the real estate market, hotel and resort and commercial as assessed would have much more property value than a residential single family house, because the money that you can get as a profit and a revenue source to the city, the assessed value of the property, you can get much more from corporate companies that have mainland companies that are owning these resorts and commercial properties versus the residential single-family house properties.
Thank you, Angela. Members, do we have any questions for the testifier?
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no further questions for the testifier, Madam Clerk, do we have any other in-person testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you. Proceeding now with remote testimony. Clerks, do we have any remote registered or non-registered testifiers?
Yes, Chair, we have Natalie Iwasa.
Aloha and good afternoon, Ms. Iwasa.
Good afternoon, Chair Okimoto and council members. Natalie Wassa for the record. Just some comments, and I did submit them in written form early this morning. We already have a disparity between rental properties and homeowner occupied properties. That difference is about $420. And then when we get into residential A, it's way, way higher. And so I appreciate the intent behind this bill. Initially, when Res A came about, the threshold was proposed to be 1.5 million. And, our median prices keep going up. So we have more than half of our homes in residential A already. That's why rent is going up, or one of the reasons rent is going up. But, the city is just addicted to this tax now. You heard the director say revenue neutrality. And really, I think we need to be looking at those exemptions. I also wanted to point out that this tiered rate makes our system more complex. So that's for the administrative side of things as well as owners, especially for landlords who get their assessment and then they want to try to calculate what the tax will be so that they can figure out how much rent they might need to charge in the coming year. So just those comments for now, and I would much rather see exemptions reduced or removed. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Iwasa. Members, if we have any questions for the testifier? Seeing none. Clerks, do we have any other remote testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you. Seeing no other testimony, members, we are in discussion. Okay, seeing no further discussion, we will move on to the last item on our agenda item number 10, as well as this is also for discussion, Bill 48, 2024, CD1 addressing Oahu's housing crisis and high costs of rental housing and provide a mechanism to support our local residents through reducing taxation of real property used as a long-term residential rental. Members, we have a proposed posted CD2, OCS 2024-1038/12/3/2025 at 2:36 p.m. submitted by Councilmember Weyer. For your information, the amendments are listed on the agenda. And with us once again, we have Director of Department of Budget and Fiscal Services, Andy Kawano.
Thank you. For the record, Andy Kawano, again, Director of Budget and Fiscal Services. With regard to Bill 48, we definitely understand the intent, to help to ensure that there is affordable housing by rental for our residents on this island. However, in the current form of Bill 48, as I read it, and I have not read CD2, I've gone through CD1, the proposal does not really fulfill the intent that I just mentioned because of the fact that I think the main issue is that there's no guarantee that the tax break or real property tax reduction or relief will actually get passed on to the renter. The administrations of the past actually adopted a bill, Chapter 8-7.6, that covers properties that can be dedicated for long-term rental use. But I think there's limited activity so far on folks that have actually applied for that one. And the reason why probably is there is a limit on the amount of rent that can be collected. So there's a 80% AMI threshold on the rent that can be charged. And perhaps that's why landlords have not applied to dedicate their residential A property to residential. But we're thinking that, I strongly believe that if you have the ability to pay, you should pay your tax. So there has to be some kind of income factor, affordability factor, in the measure if we go forward. And BFS would strongly recommend, I would recommend that we look at 8-7.6 and work on that format of legislation. And, we can be flexible with some of the provisions and see if we can get that to work, because at least we'll know that the tax relief going to the landlord actually gets passed down to the renter in some, by having the rent tied to some AMI factor, along those lines. So we put that out there for discussion. And again, I think the discussion would be ideal in a permitted interaction group, along with the other tax measures, because I think all of these should be looked in unison to come up with a strategy on how we want to, update, if you will, modernize our real property tax laws. So I'll stop there and then take questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Kawano. Members, do we have any questions for Director Kawano? I appreciate your giving your input, Director Kawano. Okay, seeing no further questions, we'll now proceed with in-person oral testimony in the council chamber. Clerks, do we have any registered or non-registered testifiers in person for this item?
Chair, we have Angela.
Aloha again, Angela.
Angela Young testifying on behalf of CARES, wishing to comment. Yeah, I think if you're looking at such a large amount of bills coming up relating to property tax exemptions and then modernizing the system, I think it's a really good idea to start with the permitted interaction group. And so with a lot of the discussions with empty homes, the group wanted to wait for the state to have the housing mandates be updated, and then for the county to respond. At least that's what I was hearing from the group when the bill went through. And so I think the proposals should really start with a group discussion, get the market to give input, and then hear about the discussions that are actively going around. For example, DPP mentioned they need more housing and affordable development, and then you guys are trying to rezone things, right, from ag to urban development. So it'd be really good to start with a group discussion and then get to the proposal. Okay.
Thank you, Angela.
Thanks.
Members, do we have any questions for the testifier? Okay. Seeing no further testifiers or questions, members, we are in discussion. Seeing no further discussion and there being no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Oh, I apologize. I have to take remote testimony. Akalamai. We'll now proceed with remote testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie Wassa, for the record. I did submit written testimony. I have some concerns about this particular bill. And with respect to that low-income rental dedication that the director spoke about, I was told that there are currently no properties in that dedication, even though that's been on the books for several years now. Part of the reason may be the low income, the low rent threshold, but I think that also not very many people know about it. And then the other thing that I see anyway is that the documents that are required to substantiate that, to be eligible for that, are just too intrusive. And, the homeowner exemption only requires an affidavit, yet these other types of dedications are going overboard in their requests for information. The other thing that I wanted to point out in this particular bill, what it would do is if the property is sold, the tax goes back to the retroactive amounts, which is just a punitive measure and disincentivizes people from purchasing property, especially tenants who may want to purchase the home that they own. So I ask you to consider that if you're going to go back into the section 8-7.6 or revise this bill. But I also think that we need to have a permitted interaction group and then discuss the system as a whole. So thank you for allowing me to testify, even though I know you want to get out of there.
Thank you, Ms. Iwasa, and thank you. I apologize for almost missing you. Members, do we have any questions for the testifier? Is there anyone else in person or remote who would like to testify on agenda item number 10, Bill 48, for discussion?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, thank you. Members, we are in discussion. Seeing no further discussion, we are now done. The meeting, seeing no further business, this meeting is adjourned.